All right, so let's see how long this lasts. So Aristotle gave us kind of, again, more of that setup with the different types of appeals for argument with the ethos, pathos, logos, telos, charis. He also then ended up kind of giving us a structure. Now, this seems kind of obvious in the sense of introduction statement, like a thesis statement, having your argument and your conclusion, very similar to like the way an essay would work. So I know this isn't kind of mind-blowing, but within those different stages, he does a nice job of kind of outlining, here are things that you certainly want to make sure you do and don't do when it comes to the speech. Again, I'll think a lot of this you're going to look at and go, okay, obviously, yes, that's what I would want to do. However, you may be surprised how often people will sometimes disregard covering some of these things. So, like, as you get into your opening where you're going to be dealing with the topic, what would be some things that you think that you should probably mention within, let's not think about it being like a minute-long kind of speech, which is more what you're going to be doing next week. But let's say you're going to be up here for like 5 or 6 minutes. What would be some things that you would want to try to accomplish within the first 45 to like say 90 seconds? We'll just go down the road. So Brady, here's my stance. And when it comes to like writing essays, what would be some pronouns that English teachers generally don't want you to use? I, me, my, and then, yeah, like all those first person things. You might not use we too often, assuming it's only you up here, but we could do some group. Can you think of another one? They're not part of like the first person, which would be like you and your, okay? And the reason that we kind of go to, we don't want you to use you or yours, because you're not like talking to the person who's reading your essay. Well, guess what you are doing in here? You're talking to the audience, you're talking to the crowd. So if there's something that you want to like have you like, convey to Maddie, you can say you, and that's understood. You can certainly say I. So there's nothing wrong with Brady coming up here and going, my position on this particular issue is, and making it clear as day as to what it is that stance is. Certainly, generally, before you come up, we kind of know what your topic is, and we know what your stance is going to be. We know Maria's affirmative, we know that Dan's going to be against it or whatnot, but it's still good to clarify what your stance is. I'll zoom in. And it's also good to kind of clarify, even for yourself, to remind, here's what I'm trying to accomplish within this given kind of time frame that you're looking at. So, introduction, we're taking a look at topic. Or what was another thing that you were thinking to include within those first minute or so? Why you're up here speaking? Okay. And that could be like dealing with the position. It could also be kind of giving a little bit of a introduction as to what are the main points about why my stance is what it is, so kind of giving us a preview. Which you're going to be then, kind of supporting the whole way throughout. So, introduction within the topic. Main thing you want to do here, a couple of different things. Consider your target audience. Who is it that you are trying to convince of something? Who determines the success of your speech in here? Sometimes. So if like next week, when Brady speaks, he's either going to get 9 or 10 points. He's going to get 10 points if more people agree with him. He's going to get 9 points if more people agree with his opponent. I have no vote in the matter whatsoever. So that target audience is going to be these people. So there could be a reference to something that isn't going to be meant for me, that's going to be meant for them, that is going to be significant as to getting points. At the same time, if it's something later on where we're not doing any kind of class vote, but I'm the one determining the grade with the rubric, he could be kind of presenting the argument in a way that's going to be geared towards me, so he kind of ends up getting that specific score that he's ultimately hoping for. So who is it that you are speaking to is certainly going to be a big thing that you're looking at. You want to certainly make your good impression. You want to try to establish your ethos. We have to raise this up because Avery can't see appeal to emotion down there. If you were going to appeal to an emotion, this would probably be the time to do it, at the beginning and or at the end. Because once you get into the actual argument, that's where you're going to be going more in that logos mode. So we have the target audience, make the good impression, establish your ethos, the credibility, the validity. Maddie, you said why, right? So far is kind of like your opinion, right? Like why for your topic. Part of that could be the ethos, why you are someone who should be speaking about this and has something
worthwhile to kind of say, and then get into that emotion if it is something that you are desiring for that specific concept. Statement, kind of like having your thesis statement. And this would be stating that viewpoint, like that first thing that Brady mentioned. So yeah, you certainly want to make sure you do state overall viewpoint that you are going to go with. Here's something that you want to double check. Don't promise more than you can prove. So don't say that you can kind of deliver the goods on something that can't be done. Who in this room has the most, let's put, I was going to say school spirit, but who in here is the best American citizen?
Yeah.
Why?
In the testing government.
Why? What makes you a better citizen than everyone else? Self-proclaimed better citizen than everyone else.
Why I think I'm a better citizen? I love this country. I wear American stuff every day. What are you wearing as American today? Oh, not today. Or is this
There you go.
You just promised more than you can prove.
Unreliable.
The problem with something like, and that's not really a debate that we would have, but is it debatable? Can you actually go ahead and prove that someone is a better American, a better citizen? And that could be such a vague term anyway. Like, what do you mean? Like contributing member, paying taxes, voting, wearing, patriotic swag throughout the hallways. But is it something that is truly debatable? In some cases, it's not. And you think about it, this is where within everyday life, this is where we get into trouble. We start an argument about something that's not debatable.
Something my sister had this morning. We were talking about the light cycle on Midnight Road, and I was like, come back to the salt proof. She's like, there's salt proof, there's a light cycle. She always says there's a light cycle that goes off of the time on Midnight Road. What? It does? Oh, geez.
Apparently that was debatable and you lost. And then this thing here, make sure that you do refer back to your thesis often. So all those points should lead back to that thesis, and not that we're going to say thesis statement, but basically your claim is going to be the argument word. But you want to make sure that all of your points lead back to supporting that claim, because sometimes we'll have some convoluted arguments where you got tangents going off in a whole bunch of different directions, which aren't really doing anything to help out what that overall argument is. It could become, I am the best American citizen, and it could quickly turn into, and this is why Brady is the worst American citizen. But if that's not part of the argument, then who cares? Doesn't make any difference whatsoever.
Yes.
I was watching my daughter have a horrible basketball game. So then I just went home and went to bed. All right, so when it comes to our argument, now we're getting to the proof. Now, we're going to kind of take a look at these two things here in tandem. You can have different types of proof. You can have different types of evidence that you're going to use throughout. You can certainly have facts, personal stories, testimonials, and it can go beyond those things. Facts could be a variety of things. It could be research studies. It could be some statistical analysis that has been done. It could be personal experiences that you even know, being fact-based. But then you could have some anecdotes, some stories, testimonials, references to other people. You could also just simply have logic with hypotheticals. This would make sense in this kind of situation, and you go in with your sample. You want to ultimately choose what are going to be the best examples that are available. So sure, it would be nice to have a variety of things. It doesn't mean that you have to have one from each category. Here is something that does kind of tend to happen. We talked about ethos a little bit yesterday, that you can establish ethos based on your performance. So I don't remember what the examples were that we made, but somebody ends up clearing the floor with the person during a debate that we'll do next week. What you also tend to notice with folks are trends. And this is like gender stereotyping. A type of evidence that males tend to use, any guesses, fall under the facts category. Specific types, specific statistics, numbers. Could be fantasy football related, who knows what. Males like statistics. Doesn't mean that therefore Grant will always use statistics, or that Meredith will never use statistics. But what tends to happen if you you know that someone always has a certain type of evidence that they are going to use, how do you prepare your speech? To combat, those statistics. And certainly up here it kind of goes, address opposing viewpoints and things like that. I don't even necessarily mean it in that way. You take something dangerous like statistics, you can basically find a statistic for anything that you want. 52% of people like something, even if that other side's 48, I could go, hey, just about half. They're pretty much the same thing. Statistical error could be within 4%, so maybe that 42 or that 52 is actually a 48. My 48 is a 52. You can use statistics for pretty much any kind of concept that you want. So if that's what you rely on, you have to watch out that your opponent doesn't end up kind of doing the same thing. Also, what can kind of happen with numbers, you hear one number and then another number and then another number. By the time you get to that seventh number, or Dan takes his decimal like to the 8th number digit, we've already kind of forgotten where it was this was going. So you do want to choose best examples. You want to make sure you don't find yourself always kind of going into trends. It can be nice to have a personal anecdote, that's kind of funny and whatnot, and that can have a nice lighthearted response from the audience. But if you always go with that, it's going to quickly kind of turn into a shtick, where you almost know this is what so-and-so is going to say. Address opposing viewpoints. By addressing opposing viewpoints, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to explain that their argument is bad. There's nothing wrong with giving the opposing viewpoint credit. Adrian makes a really good point when she said blah, blah, blah. However, and then I can kind of do a little bit of a counterclaim or explain why my viewpoint is going to be, in my position, in my opinion, a little bit of a better one. But you do want to address the opposing viewpoints. You don't want to worry about a back and forth going on. You want someone to challenge your argument so that your argument can withstand that challenge and present itself as being ultimately the best one. Don't misrepresent opposing claims. We'll get into specific logical fallacies later on in a couple weeks. This one would be considered a straw man, where you misrepresent what someone says. So you are, according to you, what? Why are you saying that I'm not a good citizen? You're supposed to say I didn't say that. So that would be me misrepresenting his claim that since I am the best, that means you're not good. That's not what you said, but that's the way that I'm misrepresenting it. Probably was happening during the debates last night. Can't say for sure because I didn't see it, but good chance that that's probably what was going on. And then, having this logical progression where you really kind of have a plan. I don't remember, Ulrich, how you phrased it, but it was something like when do we write this speech, not knowing what you were going to do next week and all that kind of stuff. What you're not going to do at any point is come up here and go, okay, and then just simply read your speech. You can have notes, you can have an outline, you can have kind of a setup so that there's a progression that's going to take place, but it's something that we want to be a little bit more organic so it kind of unfolds naturally as opposed to you reading word for word what's going on. Because what could happen if you have a back and forth, Ellie could be doing one speech, Meredith could be doing the same topic from the opposing viewpoint, and if they only stick to their script, there really might not be that back and forth. Because you could have different interpretations about things. You could have a debate about gun control that could really kind of end up going in two different directions, and if you're not paying attention to what the other side is saying, that logical progression is going to kind of just fall apart. You just threw that poor girl under the bus like right before second period, and now you want to go into your book as like class president?
She's fine. I promise.
Are you misrepresenting her?
No. I represented her the right way.
All right, last thing, conclusion, 4 parts. This one has number 1. I bet you can guess what number 2 is going to be. Followed by number 3, because that's a logical progression. Practice what you preach. So you're coming towards the end. Make the audience well-disposed towards yourself, ill-disposed towards your opponent. That doesn't mean that you go Brady Smells. You don't. That would be ad hominem. And then he would call you out on that, and then you would automatically lose. But it would be remind the audience of why your viewpoint is the one that they should like the best or better. Remind them what those flaws would kind of be in towards their opponent. So you're not really making them, I should kind of tweak this, you're not making them ill-disposed toward your opponent, you're making them ill-disposed toward your opponent's argument.
So I smell better than Brady.
Means absolutely nothing.
Would that be ad hominem?
That would
It could be misrepresenting Brady.
that would be useless, I think would be the word that I would go with. Kind of along those lines, magnify or minimize leading facts. Whose leading facts do you want to magnify? Yours. Whose do you want to minimize? The opponent. Just kind of remind them why this is good. Remind them why. It doesn't mean that necessarily theirs is bad, but remind them why this one is more important than what that opponent viewpoint was. Get the required state of emotion from your hearers. So excite them in the sense that not that they need to be yelling up and down, clapping and whatnot, but if you are doing something that's going to be dealing a little bit more political, maybe some patriotism will be kind of coming in. That doesn't mean every single speech is going to end with support the troops or go big red. But you certainly want to make sure that whatever that emotion that you're trying to elicit, that's what you're trying to kind of reinforce by the time it comes to the end. In some cases, it could be nostalgia. You maybe want them to kind of reminisce about something from previous times as opposed to what's going on in the current everyday world. Maybe you're trying to get a sense of excitement as you have, arguing about the newfound joys that will await you as you go off to your college campuses and join the workforce and all that kind of stuff that could be happening. But whatever kind of emotion you're trying to look for, you want to try to reinforce that within the conclusion. And then the last part that we're kind of taking a look at, refresh their memories. And really by this, go back to that argument. What was the overall purpose? What was the overall point that we were taking a look at? Refresh their memories of all those things. I would say, if anything, when it comes to those four parts, I'm going to slide back here. When it comes back to these parts, usually the one that gets, left behind is going to be the conclusion. So you don't want to have that and I'm done, the end for here, but you do want to run through and kind of set those things up, especially if that time is there. You don't want to end your speech with 90 seconds left on the clock and just simply go, and that's it, when you could have gone through all those steps with 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right, and just like last time, this is going to get zoomed in, so you don't have to squint to try to see what's going on. Purposes of debate. Aristotle comes up with 4 different reasons for debate, and we're just about done. This is the last thing that we're going to take a look at. Those different parts. First one, means of defense. It's a way to defend yourself. If you're being attacked, not physically, but if you're being attacked intellectually, gives you a way to kind of defend your viewpoint, to defend your argument. Maybe it gives you a chance to defend your honor if you're being expelled from school. Purposes of debate. So the reason that you would have a debate. And keep in mind, like I told you, you're going to get hit hard with a lot of notes the first half of the year. We do a midterm about halfway through the semester. And the midterm really is kind of covering all this stuff, that we're doing. To study, I'll let you use your notes, but you're not using that much midterm. This is college, Maddie. That's the fallback for everything. Even like an English 10. This is college. And they just kind of look at you and nod their head. So when you complain about revision assistant 7th period, Ellie, I'm just going to go, it's college. Deal with it. So means of defense also gives you a chance to see both sides. See both sides of what? Yeah. So here's something. Haven't really thought about it. Here's both sides to that argument. And really, that's even kind of limiting because by seeing both sides, using the word both, what does that imply? That there are 2 sides. A lot of arguments, and I'd say that's a little bit of oversimplification, a lot of arguments have more than just 2 potential outcomes. Could be 3, could be 4, could be 5, could be 20. That might not be an argument that we want to get into. But more often than not, yeah, affirmative, negative. Those are the 2 sides that happen. Within the structure of debate, affirmative always goes first.
So there's the resolution. Disney Plus is better than Netflix, or however. If you agree, you go first. If you disagree, you go second. Tomorrow and a little bit next week, when we talk about winning the debate, we'll mention pros and cons of what's the benefit to going first, what's the benefit to going second. But if you are in affirmation, affirmative, you would be going first.
Did you smile?
What I miss.
Where to begin? Prevent fraud and injustice. Ooh, this sounds pretty heavy. Purpose of debate is to prevent fraud and injustice. And a means of defense. And see both sides.
Can't you just start fighting them physically?
Nope. And the last one is instruction for the public. So prevent fraud and injustice, instruction for the public. Can you think of any aspect of current society, because Aristotle's coming up with this, a long time ago, but can you think of any aspect in society where all four of those would still occur? That it's a means of defense, see both sides, prevent fraud and injustice, and also instruction for the public. Like courtroom. So what, means, and it doesn't mean you have to be your own attorney, but a means of defense, you've been accused of something, you're able to have your argument, you're able to have your say. You see both sides, you have prosecution, you have the defense. Prevent fraud and injustice. Grant has been wrongly accused of something, so hopefully they're effective and doesn't happen where he gets, convicted. And then so far as that instruction for the public, unless you're dealing with high-level celebrity court case, the public is welcome to come into the courtroom, and so you see how that legal system is ultimately working. Yes,
Yeah, Congress.
I think in theory, yes. Now although you can, certainly you would have see both sides because it tends to be bipartisan. Fraud, injustice, you would hope the laws would, maintain that would not happen in means of defense. Instruction for the public, you don't really get to go down to Congress to see it unfold personally, but everyone's favorite cable station, not to be outdone by C-SPAN too. So if you wanted to watch, whether it be impeachment, inquiry things going on, or just laws that are being put out, you certainly could sit there and watch C-SPAN, CBA, NABOs, and all that stuff happening. So yeah, in the government aspect, and that's really where Aristotle would kind of be thinking of it. We were talking before where if you were a citizen in Greece, you would be participating in government, and also the government were the ones that were going to be doing the legal system at that time. So those two things blend. So there's certainly still some validity to those things that you're going to see multiple sides. You're going to prevent that fraud, injustice, means of defense, and then hopefully that overall instruction for the public. Now, yeah, sure, it's nice to win too, but that's the core of what he's taking a look at. And that is that. We knocked it out in 2 days. Good job. With computer malfunction.
No.
Tomorrow, we're not going to finish them, and we're probably not going to finish them until we get to next week because of us going over some stuff on Friday. Tomorrow is going to be a little bit more maybe practical for you from a day-to-day operation within here, where this is more theoretical, more of the terminology and the traditional stuff. With winning the debate, we're really trying to do, this is what Meredith wants to do to try to win. This is what Brady wants to do to try to win in case Allard accuses him of not being a good American citizen or whatever else he may accuse him of. So I think you'll find a little bit more practicality with that tomorrow. Just to clarify, quiz that we're doing for Friday,